Hello, this is Al Schwartz. I'm here with the Framework All Stars, being John Bernard and Joon Kim.
Hey,
Hello.
And we are doing Marvel rankings today. You know what this is. We're ranking the Marvel movies. We did this through a very scientific process where we all ranked all of the um, Marvel movies proper, which means we included the Disney Plus shows, but not the Netflix shows or the Agent Carter's, Agents of Shield of this universe. Massed them all together, assigned them points for how we ranked them, and we made a consensus top 5 Marvel movies that we will now talk about. On the way there, I will run down quickly all the ones that did not make the top 5, just for reference's sake. So our consensus worst film of the Marvel canon is The Incredible Hulk, followed by Captain Marvel, Iron Man 2, Thor 2,
the Dark
Age of Ultron. Yes, the Dark World, sorry. Age of Ultron, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Black Widow. Then we get to number 20 of. There are 27 of these, by the way. Number 20 would be Thor.
Too low.
Then we go up to WandaVision, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Loki, Spider-Man Far From Home. 15 would be Captain America the First Avenger. 14 would be the first Ant-Man. 13 is Spider-Man Homecoming. 12 is the original Iron Man. 11 is Doctor Strange, which we will circle back and talk about a little bit more. 10 is Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Number 9 is Captain America Civil War. Number 8, Black Panther. Number 7, Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 6, Avengers Endgame. And then our number 5 is Avengers Infinity War, which both of you guys, I believe, ranked a bit higher than I did. So let's kick it to June. You, I believe, ranked this number 7 overall. What was it that made this stand out to you?
I put it at number 7. I had no idea.
Yes.
What was it stand out? In particular, it was a striking movie just because they finally managed to make Thanos feel like a character and a threat after I think maybe 2 or 3 failed attempts at doing so. Like where it didn't really work out, so they were really playing catch up.
Yeah.
Because what was it in 2012? I think Avengers was in 2012. They teased Thanos being the big bad of the setup. Was it people like, oh, okay, let's see how this goes. Age of Ultron had like a little tease. Guardians of the Galaxy had him as an actual character.
Yeah, he actually appears and speaks in
Right.
Guardians of the Galaxy in the movie proper.
In the movie proper, and I didn't find it particularly compelling there.
He's kind of bad, yeah.
And I think that's it, right? That's it until.
Well, there's talk of him. He's mentioned he's not on camera in Guardians 2.
That's right, yeah.
But he's very much a presence, at least when with Nebula and Gamora, and they're talking about him. It's actually some of the best development.
Yeah, I don't think he's mentioned in Ragnarok.
Yeah.
So and then his ship appears at the end of Ragnarok, but not himself. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just in terms of just the machinations to make him the actual central character of that movie, while all the heroes are the tertiary characters, kind of. That was an interesting move that I find a mixed bag, but in the end, for the purposes of that movie, I think it works really well. It was really exciting to see it finally kind of paying off. The battle against him was just really fun and creative, and it's one of those movies where I'm part of a Asian American filmmaking community in Seattle. That one time we just kind of met up, to talk about the movies, the industry, and everything. It's like, and Infinity War just come out, and everybody was just kind of like, "Do you guys just want to go see that again?" It's like, "Yeah, let's go do that," and then we did. So it's that kind of memory that just kind of makes you go, "Yeah, I'll put that up pretty high."
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of this one too, and it's Thanos is why. I mean, the other stuff in the movie they do pretty well, I would say. All the characters are recognizably who they are. They do a really good job of juggling this ensemble of 30 plus characters. They all kind of feel like they are present, at least, but the fact that Thanos is front and center and it works is outrageous. I kind of think it's underrated to some extent how weird it is that works at all. Like it shouldn't work. Like this goober, this giant purple man with a stupid chin.
Yeah.
Like he looks dumb.
Space Smurf
Yeah,
pursuing his rock
like,
collection.
Exactly. It should be so stupid. It should not work. It should be exactly like it was in the previous Thanos appearances, where it's just like, well, he's just a big monster man. This is dumb. They make him the emotional center of the film, and it pays off. It's nuts. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I can't believe that actually works.
That's the part that actually doesn't work. That's the part that actually doesn't work for me. But it's okay. But it's the emotional component is the one that doesn't work for me, because I can never really buy into the fact that in the end it is just the big stupid purple man collecting rocks. They just take it really, really seriously, and I can go with that as long as he's a threat. But the moment the movie seems to ask me to feel for his plight is when it makes me crack up.
I mean, it is funny.
I don't know that it asks you to like really sympathize with him, but it does. It gives him a comprehensible point of view.
Yeah,
in a way
sure.
that you did not think you were going to get from Thanos. Even if read the Infinity Gauntlet, he does not have that sort of. It's still insane what he's doing in the movie, and it's the worst possible solution to the problem that he has identified. But
which is fine. That's fine. Like that, I have no problem with, because it is a stupid purple man, doing his thing. So the part that I'm talking about in terms of the emotional context is when he throws his daughter off the cliff, and it does a crossfade to his single tear on his cheek. So that's where it makes me crack up, because that's where
it is outrageous.
It lost me. Where it's like, what are you doing? Are you trying to cry? Is my reaction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, yeah, I don't feel for his emotional plight there, but it is his emotional plight in that moment is sort of a plot point, that the whole premise there is that it has to evoke real emotion from him in order for it to unlock this key.
That's why it's fun. He's like, the Soul Stone is like, you're pushing it a little hard, buddy. You don't need to go that far.
Well, he's this melancholy figure ultimately.
Yeah,
like that he has this sadness to him, and that he, at least as the film would have it, understands the weight of what he's doing and is committed to it anyway, and
he
carries
loves
it. Yeah,
he loves it. He loves it. That's the big thing. Just own it. Just love the fact that you're trying to do this plan that nobody let you do the last time, and so you're really, really stuck on it this time.
Now, I think he finds some joy in his work.
Oh yeah,
in small moments.
Yeah.
Now, is there I mean, I have not read the comics with Thanos. This is an arc I never got around to. As I understand it, though, he's way sillier. Like they're not going for that. He's kind of I'm an evil Titan. That's his persona basically.
He has a helicopter.
He's got the helicopter.
The helicopter thing is a panel that gets passed around the internet a lot. That's not really representative, I don't think, of how he was depicted for like 15 years. It was like I think it might have even been a what if comic. It was a goofy sort of one off. But he's certainly goofier as almost everybody in these movies is almost always goofier.
He would have to be just how he looks. This is not a character designed for empathy, or for these sort of decisions. He's clearly like a big cartoon monster man who wants all the stones. Like that seems to be all he is, top to bottom in the comics. And I know there's stuff about like him falling in love with death that still sounds very silly to me, no matter how well it's pulled off.
It's not even pulled off that well. I mean, his big series in the comics is the Infinity Gauntlet miniseries from the 80s, and it's iconic for having some like really striking covers, I think, is the main thing, and for doing it does the classic comic book thing of we're killing everybody, and then just at the end of the series it's like, well, psych, everybody's back, nothing really happened here.
So what they do in Infinity War, basically.
Well, we'll talk about Endgame a little bit later. I'm going to circle back to that because I think Endgame actually finds a really good way of getting around like the worst of that shit. And if there's one thing, I thought you guys might have been championing this on the basis of, it's the one that has like real emotional stakes because all these people die at the end, and that's
nope. Nothing.
Nope. Okay. It's just noping out of that one right away.
Really cool team up movie. Like to me, it was it was getting that live action Dragon Ball movie that I never got and I never expected. Another big big fighting
that
series,
carries.
superhero series about collecting stones and fighting the big galactic boss is basically about the same.
Well, I think you guys made a better case for it than I expected then, because I thought it was going to go that other way. But what you were saying, actually, I think now it may move up my estimation a little bit, because I started to think, is this the last time that the Marvel universe was able to like pleasantly surprise us or impress us? Like, was this the last time we had actual doubts about like, I don't know if they can pull this off. Whereas now, like, they've been to the top of the mountain as far between this and Endgame, and we know there's nothing else that they can't do. But going into this, there were open questions about, can they really make Thanos work as a villain?
Yeah.
And you know, the Avengers universe had expanded greatly throughout Ultron and Civil War, and they juggled that pretty well. But combining them with the Guardians like sphere was also like the thing that was still the crossover that hadn't happened yet, and it felt like it could maybe not work. And now it seems like it's especially, you know, we're watching Loki or whatever on Disney Plus, and there's really no question for us. Like, yeah, we can take anybody from anywhere in this universe and cross them over with anybody else, and I'm sure it'll work. I'm not surprised if it works anymore. I'm just like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as Infinity War came out, I mean, it was definitely a question, like, is Thanos going to be stupid? And I think within that movie being out for a weekend, like, it was self-evidently, no, Thanos worked, you know? You might have nits to pick with other things. You might not like the film, but, like, it's not because they screwed that guy up. Like, that was clear, I think, culturally, immediately. And it's never been a problem since. Yeah.
Tons of credit to Brolin.
Yeah.
I feel like we should mention it. Just does do a great job of making me take the big purple dude, you know, seriously.
Yeah, I think if I rated this one a little lower than you guys, is because for me, I don't think of it as like, oh, this is a great movie unto itself, because it's sort of, despite being 2.5 hours long, it's half a movie, you know. And but what it excels at, I think, is just scene by scene, it is very entertaining and very watchable, because you're constantly, the Russo brothers are just magicians about this, about just shifting the Rubik's Cube around, of combining characters that you hadn't really like given thought to being together, and just finding like fun, funny, interesting stuff for them, ways for them to bounce off each other.
Yeah, they're having fun with that. Like, the writers, whoever was putting this together, like, just had a ball writing this. The cast seems to all work together. Like, you know, choosing to have Doctor Strange and Iron Man spend all their time together. You know, those are kind of the characters that, you know, kind of get a bad rep for being too similar. And so they stick them together for the whole movie to be like, okay, here's how they're different.
I love Doctor Strange in this. I think, like, more than I like the solo movie, but I like this was where, like, oh man, this is a great character for these movies. And so more than anything, I feel like him in this movie is why I'm like really excited to see the sequel for Doctor Strange.
Yeah, but I think Iron Man and Doctor Strange is a combo that seems a little more natural. Like, you can see how they would butt heads immediately. I would say Thor and Rocket Raccoon is the one that I did not see
also
coming
great.
and being a fantastic pairing. Yeah, and a weirdly emotional pairing. Like, that's like one of the better emotional scenes in all of the Marvel universe, is Thor's just sort of taking stock of everything that his solo series of films has taken away from him.
Yeah, and those are such discordant tones going on in Thor, basically, in the previous Thor film, Ragnarok, which, you know, is largely thought of as a huge comedy where the protagonist loses his entire family in his home and a lot of horrible things happen to him, and they somehow thread the knot on both those in those Rocket Raccoon scenes in the following. It's nuts. Like, the level of success they have with all the things they're pulling off is outrageous in Infinity War. And I even think it works as a standalone on its own movie if you watch it as a Thanos movie. If Thanos has a complete arc in Infinity War.
So, you know, it's funny you mentioned Ragnarok, because that is our number 4 consensus pick.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
You rated this the lowest of all of us. I think June and I both had it quite high, and you had it relatively low. So, what's your problem, John?
Okay, here's the problem with this. I like the Thor movies, is the thing. I kind of have an affinity for this corner of the MCU. I like Asgard. I like the first Thor movie very much. Dark World's not very good. I raked it low, but like I'm into those characters, is the thing. I think they work, so and I like Ragnarok. Yep.
I'm not that into those characters, but maybe this explains why. Like you rated the first Thor movie quite high, where I had it at the bottom of the barrel, and I have Thor.
Yeah.
I think Thor 2 is better than most people do. It is commonly cited as like the worst of the Marvel movies, and I think it's right in the middle of the pack. I think it's quite a bit of fun. I'm not going to say it's great cinema,
It's
but I had a great
fine.
time at the theater with it.
It's nothing is the thing. Like it feels like nothing has happened when you watch that movie.
Thor's
Um,
mom gets killed.
and it feels like nothing. It feels it's more impactful in Infinity War actually, or Endgame.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the one where they go back in time and Rene Russo comes back. But
But what happens in the first one? Like nothing that I
no,
can think
okay,
of.
fair enough. Yeah, I'm a
Hey,
big
first
proponent
one establishes
of first Thor.
Loki.
Yes,
That's not.
and Thor. Like
Okay.
these are two
Yeah.
excellent movie star defining performances that come out of nowhere. No one knew who these guys were before them. You know, they had done nothing before Thor, and then all of a sudden, Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, huge stars because they're so good in Thor in these roles.
They are really good.
You know, like they're immediate movie stars. What I really like about the first Thor, and I'll move off this quickly so we can talk about Ragnarok,
Yeah.
is that it is really a purely a children's film. Like it is a Masters of the Universe movie, about as good a Masters of the Universe movie as you could ever want. Like the characters seem like they're
That's good.
designed to be understood by children. Like they're really
Certainly.
happy or really sad. You know, the love story in it is like on paper technically pretty bad. It's not convincing.
I would agree with you, except that Jane Foster is sometimes really horny,
Yeah, well, there is
which is actually one of my favorite parts about it.
that is
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I like that there's a horniness to it, but that's also you don't. It also kind of works the way like a child would imagine a relationship, like a pre-sexual child
Yeah.
was kind of be like, well, they're into each other, so they're in love, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Like
It is kind of a PG horniness. Yeah, you're right.
they're wearing big space armor. You know, like if they have his buddies show up, the three. What are they called? The three. I don't know.
Warriors three.
Warriors 3.
Yeah, the Warriors.
You're the one who's
3.
supposed to like this corner of the universe.
Well, they're dumb, but they're still kind of like they're like He-Man action figures, you know. Like that one's the Archer, and that one has let's say probably a karate chop, you know. And then there's a fat guy. He comes with food action figure, you know. Like
And a girl.
yeah, exactly. There's a Tila
And the girl one.
So I really liked He-Man when I was a kid, and Thor, the original Thor, kind of reminded me of how I enjoyed He-Man in a way that it tapped into a sort of a childhood thing in a way most movies are unable to do, and I appreciate it for that because it is a simple film, but it's charming. But Thor Ragnarok is clearly a better made film. I believe I did rank that higher than the original Thor.
Yes, you did. It is, and what I like about this one is it is pushing the Marvel universe to the point of not even just parody, but like of being a spoof. Like it is almost like the top secret of the Marvel movies or the Naked Gun, and it walks this very fine line between doing that of doing just joke every minute and some very goofy ones. And also it is the most ultimately like impactful to the larger Marvel universe. It has on paper, like if you look at what happens to Thor in this, like he takes the biggest blows, emotionally. And I'm not saying that like, it's hugely moving on that score, but it stops it from being complete like joke that feels like it's separate from the rest of the universe. Like it's still a part of things.
I mean, I know some people who like really what's the good word for it? Just like sneer at Ragnarok for taking away what they were enjoying about the first two.
I mean, that's
like
me a little. It's me a little.
Yeah, right. So I can kind of understand that because it turns as if they take something that was Shakespearean and fairly serious and turns it into like it outright embraces a spoofy tone, where like it takes that tendency that Marvel movies gradually came to have, like where for every moment of seriousness, it was immediately undercut with some kind of joke. Like in this case, I'm thinking like Doctor Strange has a moment of like real self-realization, has a tear, and then the cape wipes it off for him. He's like, "Stop it!" It's just that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Ragnarok just completely turns that and makes it a part of its core identity.
Mm-hmm.
I like that about it.
For me, like I think that's cool. I think it brought Hemsworth like kind of. I think it brought Hemsworth back from a certain degree of disinterest in the character after maybe Ultron and Thor 2. Like I think it got him
He's a bit on.
reinvested in like he's
Yeah.
like really enjoying it again, and
Clearly.
it was just flat out entertaining. I think I put it really high just for the sheer fact that it was just that entertaining, just a pure
It's
entertainment.
really, really funny. Like,
And yeah,
I think
I
it
have
was one of the
issues with
funniest
that.
comedies of the 2010s, right?
And I
That
have
was-
issues with that movie too in terms of just general plot stuff. Is that you get Kate Blanchett to play a great villain, but she doesn't really do much because it's the most of the movie is focused on Thor's adventures, and she's just kind of off waiting until it's time for her time. So like that, I think that's it's a nitpick, but really the movie's so entertaining, I end up not caring too much about it. It's just something I can kind of ding the movie for.
Well, again, I'm not disagreeing with you, but on paper, she kills off the Warriors 3.
Right.
That's like
Oh, yeah.
the biggest thing that's happened in the Thor's Corner of the Universe, but it is so perfunctory in
Yeah.
how it.
Right.
The movie does not give a shit about them. Like it
like,
wants you to know that it doesn't give a shit about them. Like,
Yeah, and if you actually did give a shit about them, I can understand being upset by that. I have never met in my life, and I'm confident that I never will meet anybody who gives a genuine shit about the Warriors 3.
it would be nice if Thor gave a shit about them. Is all like that. That's
because
the
Thor
thing.
doesn't even see it
Like-
happen. He doesn't even see it happen.
No, he never
Yeah, he never
learns
reacts
about
to
it. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's like it's all completely all that stuff is so like he's not even there when it happens.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, Carl Urban's a much bigger deal in that movie, and
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
fun.
But he's also great in it.
Yeah, he is. He is fun, but like, I don't actually care about that guy. What's his name? I don't even know. It's
Scourge.
Scourge. Yeah, okay. I'm way more into Fandrill and you know what? No, I'm not. I don't even know their
Heimdall?
goddamn names. Yeah. Yeah.
Seth, who else we got? No,
Okay.
I don't have any Warriors 3s.
Hogan.
What's Ray Stevenson's
I think-
guy, the fat guy? Volstagg.
Yeah, that's it. Fandrill, Hogan, and Volstagg. I think that's them. All right. So clearly, I don't give a shit about them. But like, I do feel like Ragnarok could easily have been 2 movies. It could have been the Jeff Goldblum Hulk Junk Planet thing that Taika Waititi was clearly the most interested in with Tessa Thompson. That's great. And then it could be the serious ending to the Thor saga that it also is kind of trying to shoehorn into that movie. And it works. It's fine. It's good. Everyone's good in it. They really did nail down what Hemsworth is good at in it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And Hemsworth is great in this role.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I could say this about 3 or 4 different things, but maybe the most impressive to me success of the whole MCU is nailing Thor and making Thor, who was far and away my least favorite superhero on the page for decades, and he is the highlight of these movies. I want him in everything, in all these movies. I'm so glad he's going to be with the Guardians next. And having him just this Thor Hulk team up movie was also great.
Yeah, it is a fun movie. I mean, it's definitely an entertaining thing to watch. Like I'm not mad at it. It's very good.
And I really don't think I don't want the serious like Sturm and Drang Ragnarok movie that takes all that very seriously.
I do. Yeah. Okay.
Like people, you can talk about that. Oh yeah, the Shakespearean stuff. But that shit never works. It's terrible.
No, it's Masters of the Universe Shakespeare. It's William Shakespeare's the Merchant of Eternia, whatever the shit. It's dumb, stupid stuff as well as being Shakespearean. So, which
if I want that, I'll watch Gods of Egypt.
yes,
That's my Masters of the Universe movie.
That's not a bad comparison, to be honest. Like
No.
that's kind of a. Have you seen that, Al?
I bits of it on TV. I've heard. I know people really like it.
I'm one of the original fans now because the whitewashing stuff really kind of like, oh, that's really annoying. But I went to go see it anyway. It came out of it going, it's like, that was amazing. I love that.
It's also like it gives off strong Masters of the Universe energy. So I take your point. Well, you know what I like about Ragnarok, I think, can bridge over to our number 3 pick, which is Iron Man 3. And in both these cases, I think the third movie in this, solo franchise is the best. And it's because as these series were going on, I feel like they kind of figure out what they want to be and finally just in the third one kind of lean into that entirely. So in Thor's case, I feel like it starts out more in that Shakespearean vein where Kenneth Branagh is trying to play around with that stuff a little more. But what we realize over time is that Thor is a very goofy character. Chris Hemsworth has a very winning, goofy energy, and Tom Hiddleston can play off that very well. And those movies just want to be big, colorful, goofy comedies. Uh, and so by Ragnarok, the third installment, it is a full blown comedy, and I'm here for that. I happen to think all the Marvel movies, I kind of think them primarily as comedies with some better than average action for an action comedy. Uh, but in Iron Man's case, from the start, you kind of sense that these are they have the Robert Downey Jr. energy that they're built around, and that he honed with Shane Black in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And so they always kind of want to be a Shane Black movie in a Marvel vein. And by the third one, it's like, well, fuck it, let's just make a Shane Black movie, and that works best of them.
Yeah, as it turns out, it's of course Shane Black can write this character really well. You know, like of course it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
He's been writing versions of this character his whole career, and it, you know, Robert Downey Jr. is a perfect vessel for Shane Black. And
Oh
so
yeah, he's like made in a lab for him.
it's a match made in heaven completely. I like all the things this is doing. That, you know, I think at this point everyone's kind of on board with what they did with the Mandarin and the Ben Kingsley performance because it's so good. Like
it's so funny.
Too
Not
successful.
everyone.
I'm sure there's some people still mad, but it's such a good thing. Like there's nobody who could have pulled that off better than Ben Kingsley. Is a major key to this. Like he is wonderful in that role because you buy him as the one thing, and you buy him even more as the other thing. It's really great. I do think, you know, Guy Pearce's character not so interesting, but Guy Pearce doing Shane Black stuff kind of brings it up, kind of makes it a little more fun.
Yeah. I think you're right in that. I think I had an oversight when we did our episode where we talked about with like the Oscars actually rewarded comedies. Ben Kingsley should have got a supporting actor nomination for Iron Man 3, in my opinion.
It's pretty
and
magical.
You're right. Like,
yeah,
Guy Pearce is not the most interesting villain or character, but he's having some fun with it. There's like one little part, especially where he's like talking about after the Ben Kingsley reveal. He's talking about him, and he's sort of like, "Yeah, I know he's a bit much," and he has this aside like, "Yeah, he's a stage actor." Like, and I don't know, for some reason, the way Guy Pearce delivers that little aside just kills me.
They say his leer was a toast to Croydon.
Wherever that is.
Wherever that is. See, I actually love Guy Pearce in it. I think the only thing that lets him down is what lets the whole movie down in general is just the overblown climax that all of these movies kind of are obligated to do, where Guy Pearce has to become a very rote stock kind of I'm the bad guy villain. But before then, I was really digging what he was doing, both when he was super super nerdy and when he was like suave, slick back 80s bad guy.
Yeah, I actually like him in that final sequence when he's running around without a shirt and he's got dragon tattoos and he's shooting fire out of his mouth. It's funny. It's fun, you know. It's the movie kind of embracing that it's a comic book film, you know, and because for the midsection of this film, it's a Tony Stark movie rather than an Iron Man movie.
Yeah,
like he doesn't have the suit on for like a good 45 minutes at least in there,
which is something I love about this actually.
Yeah.
That it is sort of de rigueur in superhero movies that one of the things you do after you establish them, usually in like the second movie, but in this case it's the third, is you take away the hero superpowers and see what they do there. And that's, Superman 2, it's Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
And here he ends up having to be out of the armor for long stretches of time. And that is, I think, great because first of all, the armor stuff can be such a, Deus Ex Machina type of thing where he's got an app for everything. And Shane Black has a lot of fun and makes the character, like challenges the character in more interesting ways, makes him more interesting by making him solve problems outside of the suit. And then we also get parts where he's like in the suit halfway or, part way, and that's fun. And then by the end, like, if you're upset that, I came to see an Iron Man movie and he's out of the suit for so much, there's the most suit action possible. He's got 40 different suits flying around at once. Right. He and Rhodey are both like popping out of one and jumping off of something and getting caught by another one and flying off. And yeah, ultimately, like it becomes a lot of visual noise, and I wouldn't say it's like
It's not that bad.
exciting
Yeah.
on like a real sense of danger level, but it is inventive and
Mhm.
and sort of light on its feet and keeps things guessing. I can say the same thing about the climax for Thor: The Dark World. It is hard for to physically threaten a god who can't really be killed, and so trying to make you like feel for the danger he's in is never really going to work. Uh, so what the Dark World does in its climax is it makes things just weird and goofy and inventive
A
with all
portal
like the
comedy.
portals.
Yeah,
Yeah, where they're having like worlds dropping into other worlds, and they're
it's
the hammer's
it's
flying around into a different galaxy for a minute, and then it pops
it's
back in.
it's the Monsters it's the Monsters Inc. finale.
It is, yeah. It is good, but not. I mean, what are we talking about? Dark World. It's fine. It's
Well, let's
okay.
talk about the Iron Man 3
Yeah.
dogfight. That's
Well,
I mean,
I love it. It's also so Shane Black.
Mhm.
It's down at the docks in a ship full of
Yeah.
shipping containers at Christmas. So you couldn't get more Shane Black. It's
Yeah.
so just leaning into his vibe entirely there, even as it is turning into a comic book thing. Uh, that that fragility of just mortal Tony without a suit works so well in
Yeah.
this. It's not unlike what we were talking about with Black Widow the other week, which is
Yeah.
a gift. If you can just make him mortal and therefore, more relatable, more vulnerable, then that's interesting. That's a storytelling gift that you can just do stuff with, and they really do in Iron Man 3. Not so much in
Yeah.
Black Widow. Yeah, and
And I think
yeah,
that reflects what we talked about, that they're Disney for whatever reason is still at a stage, I think, where they really want to push these female heroes forward, but they lack confidence in doing that. So they tend to overegg the pudding and just make them infallible and indestructible from the start. And by Iron Man 3 especially, they have such confidence in that character that they can take him out of push him into some difficult places, challenge him a bit more, and
and
you
allow
know
him to be an asshole to people. That helps.
yeah.
God, that's so nice.
God, the kid
To a
sidekick
kid, to
stuff
a
is
kid.
so great.
Exactly. Like that's such a charming thing in that movie is what an asshole he is to that kid. And it ends up you become endeared to this child performer who you normally wouldn't,
Yeah.
that's normally not something that works. And I guess that's what he figured from Last Action Hero. Oh, we have to insult the kid and then people will be on his side. It's like Britta on Community, it's just
Yeah.
like this character's not working. How do we get it to work? Oh, we just be
I,
mean to him. That's
I read somewhere, I heard somewhere, or I read somewhere. Maybe it was from you guys. I can't remember. But Shane Black putting a little kid in this movie was basically his response to Last Action Hero's failures, like saying, like, "Hey, if I have control, I can make it work." Whereas Last Action Hero didn't.
yeah,
I
Chris was
think I
talking
think we
about
talked
that.
about that in the
Was
Arnold episode.
was it
Yeah.
you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it
sounds
was.
really
I mean, it was a
familiar.
theory that we were throwing out. I don't think he ever
I
said
thought it was a good theory.
it. Well, it does work. It's great. And it's again, Iron Man 3 and Thor Ragnarok, I think, like, work as full blown comedies.
Yeah.
Like they
I mean,
can stack up as two of the funniest movies of the 2010s.
It also has it has great goons, like just memorable
it
goons,
does.
which is a lot of these movies try to do but they don't work
No,
out.
but Shane Black gives the best goon in the
Right,
business,
right.
Mr.
Like the
Mustard.
Yeah, as opposed to Thor: The Dark World's goon, Curse. That was
who?
yeah, exactly.
He's just like a yeti.
God damn,
Um, but like, all right.
we're gonna have to do a whole.
Oh,
But
Dark
and
on the
World
other
episode.
end of the spectrum, I would say one of the few, maybe only, of these Marvel movies that work for me as like a pure action movie, and maybe as an action movie first and foremost rather than a comedy, is Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Mhm.
that was my number one.
That was yeah,
It was high for
my
you
number
too,
two.
right? Yeah, number two.
Yeah.
And what was it on mine? It was
Oh, I
was
could look
lower.
it up.
It was a lot lower.
10.
Okay, yeah,
But
right.
Why
it's
do
not
you
even.
hate gritty seriousness?
It's not remotely gritty or serious.
I know.
It's
Why do you hate the parallax view, John?
yeah.
Why do you hate 3
I
days of
hate
Congo?
70s conspiracy thrillers. That's my problem with it. I have
You
no
don't
problem with this
understand.
movie. It's really good. It's a very good movie.
Yeah,
Totally fun.
I think it's the one movie, like, the action in this kicks ass. I love, like, that
No
that
question.
highway, like, chase shootout thing is the best action in the entire Marvel universe, and some of the best action in like mainstream filmmaking of that decade, I'd say.
As far as pure action goes, I think it is. I think it, like, for what we think of as an action scene, yeah. I mean, it comes a bit of an elastic term, I think, with these movies. Sometimes it's an effect sequence functions in the same way as an action sequence, and
Right.
and it's rare that those two things work together necessarily. I guess the end of Thor: The Dark World is an example, but mostly you either have a big effect scene
But
or a big action scene, and they lean towards the effect scenes in these. So it's nice to have pure action in one, and that is Winter Soldier. Until the very end, the big finale is kind of both. Yeah,
The big finale is where it disappoints, but it's also still well done. On that
It
on
is.
that front, it's still well done, even though I have qualms about it going that big again. But that's just I kind of have to suck that up.
as far as the villain Sky Fortress exploding, it is better in Winter Soldier than in Black Widow.
Oh yeah,
Well, yeah. Also, the entire like secret Russian mind-controlled assassin program that runs the world reveal is done better here. Say the you got a computer Nazi, like an MS DOS computer Nazi in this.
Right.
That's
Great turn.
That's more fun than anything I got out of Black Widow.
It's a fantastic turn because you kind of remember that character and you remember nothing really happens with him. He got involved in Operation Paperclip and then he became a computer person. That's great. Very satisfying. It's very good. I mean, my favorite action scene, I mean, it's probably the one on the turnpike, but the Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury in the car scene is right up there. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's such a terrific sequence because they kind of explain how the car works, what he's up against, and then they keep dialing that up. I mean, it ends with him a little bit of a a bit of a Ninja Turtles escape.
Cheat?
Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay because he dies in the next scene anyway. But
and then comes back.
Yeah.
I do like the end of that sequence is one of the like dumber things in the movie. That they blow up his car, it flips over. You see the Winter Soldier stalking up to it to finish him off, and Winter Soldier pulls out the door, and we see that he has carved a hole in the ground and like escaped into the sewers. And the Winter Soldier is just like, well, I guess I have no jurisdiction in the sewers. Like he could just drop down and chase him immediately, but he's just like, well, fair play, you got away.
It's a very Dark Knight kind of thing where I saved Rachel. The Joker's still upstairs, but I'm too tired.
Yeah. I think also one of the reasons why the action works better in this is because there are, like we were just talking about, there are a lot of mortals in this movie. Like Captain America is superhuman, obviously, and he can, they establish he can jump out of a plane without a parachute. He's not completely indestructible. Like when he gets shot, like he feels it and it slows him down. But that in a lot of these action sequences, you've got Black Widow, you have Falcon, you have Nick Fury running around, and they are more vulnerable. So it creates some sense of stakes there, at least in the relative, field that we're working on here.
I do like that opening on the boat too, just because of how much he destroys those guys. Just the ass kicking that Captain America performs on the French pirates at the beginning. That also scene makes them feel very mortal. Just watching, just like hit pipes and then fall off the boat. It's great.
Throwing knives into hands before they can pull the alarm. It's from the get go. I really just love the way the physicality of Captain America is shown. More so than First Avenger, or probably almost any other of the movies where it's it shows how enhanced he is, but he's not flying around. So it's more like they do really creative versions of showing how like he can smash through walls and he runs so fast that paper kind of flutters around him. Yeah. But it's still just relatable enough where like it looks impressive. Like whatever they did to make that work, I think that works really, really well.
There's one just great moment where he's chasing the Winter Soldier into a hallway and he like busts through a door and bounces off the wall before like makes the turn to change out, but he just like leaves a giant like hole in the drywall where he bounced off of it, and it just gives you a sense that like he's fast like a normal person and shaped like a normal person, but he's just like weightier and stronger,
but also super fast. But it doesn't look like he's floating. Like a lot of like a poorly done version of that would not sell that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not really wire work in this.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a bit for Black Widow, but not for Captain America.
I think the Russos, I mean, this is kind of it was their first one. Um, and what it's 3 now. They've done this in Infinity War and
Well,
the other one. Oh,
4
no, in
because
Civil War.
it's
In
4.
Civil
they did
War, right.
Civil War too.
4.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think they've kind of established that they're the best at this. Like that as far as company men go, to be hired by the Marvel Entertainment Complex or whatever, they seem to be the ones who have the best handle on it and a finger on the pulse of what makes these work. Yeah,
It's them and their writers. I think they've maintained the same writers throughout. The Marcus and McFeely,
yeah, and that is something that
who wrote the first Captain America too.
yeah.
So they've been through all. They've been doing all the Captain America-ish ones,
which are sort of the spine of this of everything, because by 3 it's like a full-blown Avengers movie like that. We can talk about Civil War in a little bit, but that I think what they realize going through the Captain America series is that after First Avenger, which is a prequel, that it's hard to do a Captain America solo movie, and what they want is to Captain America movies to be sort of like 2/3 of an Avengers movie. That they want it to be, because Civil War is pretty much an Avengers movie, and even in Winter Soldier, like this is pretty focused on Captain America, but also it's building out an ensemble around him, where Falcon and Black Widow and Nick Fury and even Maria Hill have like some things to contribute to this plot in like a meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean it's the larger plot, I guess. I mean, when you refer to the spine, it's it's having all the major things move forward. It's the story of Shield and the story of Black Widow largely took place in Captain America films, and yeah, characters like Falcon, who are, I guess, important in the scheme of things. He's kind of the guy they call to if they need somebody to show up, I guess, in most of these movies, like Ant-Man, but all his story takes place within the Captain America context. That's it is, I guess, the spine, because Iron Man kind of got out of the way early, as for his franchise.
Yeah, but in Captain America, once he's in the present day, like his entire role is as the like center and heart of the Avengers. So
yeah,
it's harder to take him completely out of that context.
I mean, yeah, you could probably just call Civil War the Avengers: Civil War, and it just seems like
Absolutely.
They wanted the Captain America nomenclature just for they all have to have a trilogy. Kind of is how it mostly feels. I guess it is more of a Captain America film than anyone else, but I mean, it's almost as much an Iron Man film.
I mean, it's almost a two-hander with Iron Man.
Yeah,
and Iron Man is actually really good in that one too because of it, because of that contrast.
But because I think you're right that the action is the best in this, and the Russos have the best handle on it, and I think it's striking, especially when you look at Winter Soldier. They do Black Widow action better than the Black Widow movie did. And Civil War, I think they do Black Panther action better than the Black Panther movie does.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely true.
Yeah, that is the one thing in Black Panther that is not quite up to snuff, I'm afraid.
No, definitely not.
I will give credit. None of us ranked Falcon and Winter Soldier very high, but it did some really, I think, pretty sweet Falcon action, at least in the first episode.
Oh yeah,
so
for sure.
I won't lump that in there.
Yeah, probably the best thing they had going there. Well, there were some ideas in that, just didn't work out.
But okay, well, let's see. Civil War I had high, and Joon had pretty high too. One of the best sequences in all of the Marvel films, and maybe the best, is that tarmac battle. For me, is just, I mean, it is the epitome of having no real like stakes in terms of physical danger to these characters. Like, it's part of the narrative there that they're not really playing for keeps, except for maybe Black Panther.
That is a knock on it for some people, not for me, but I've
I think it. I mean, give it up for Marcus and McFeely.
Semi knock for me, but that's are we talking about Civil War now?
Sure. If you have anything else you want to say about it.
So in terms of, we're talking about the Russos and how good they are at just being the company men that can just pull this off really well. I think Civil War is pulled off about as best as it can be, but that was the movie, and I've said it multiple times over the years, that was the movie where it kind of reached my limit. I realized we're like, oh, this is where I'm kind of bumping up against it. Like, regardless of how well they do it in good faith, like to incorporate all these disparate characters into such a movie that's trying to be serious. Like Civil War is trying to be serious about a lot of stuff, and I think that's where I reach my limit like Winter Soldier was was the one where like I guess that's the platonic ideal for what they can do with that, and Civil War pushed it just enough where like they're doing such a good job, but I'm having a hard time like completely taking it in, even though it's
That
still really well done.
that does beg a question. Then, can these movies get serious again? Can these movies kind of have gravitas to them, or even
Oh,
tragedy to them? Like Endgame, I guess, kind of is going for that for like 20 minutes, but then it goes back to a safer space very quickly. It becomes, the gang's all here, time heist, comedy, hijinks. Even, when it's sad, it's kind of fun sad,
I
it's,
think emotionally, I think
yeah.
they can do it. Like it won't be from death, but it'll be from just if as long as the character dynamics are good, I think you can do it. It's just in this case, I think the personal stuff between Cap and Tony is all nice. It's when the movie tries to frame it as like this is about what's the themes here, like security versus
Freedom.
personal
Yeah,
accountability.
the political stuff not so much, but the
So
interpersonal like
right,
conflict between those two,
like
yeah.
it's just a device to get them kind of going until they eventually reveal what's actually driving them, which is much more human, slash petty emotional things, which I think is probably for the best because I can't take the serious. I can't really take it serious when there's Hydra in the world, where of course Captain America wouldn't believe
Right.
you know letting the government take control is a good idea. We've seen that Hydra has been behind a lot of this stuff, so like I can't take that part of it seriously. But you know, at least it's really actually about the fact that he's losing everybody that was close to him. So that's what's fueling his insecurity about everything going on.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree with June that Winter Soldier is sort of as serious as you can steer this stuff before it all falls apart.
And even
Probably.
that movie,
Yeah.
it drops it by making it was all because of Hydra computer people,
Yeah.
it was lizard people.
And Gary Shandling, yes.
Right,
I
right.
let
Even that
lizard
though,
person.
at least there's multiple evil people in the world, and as opposed to the Black Widow's version of it, where it's just one guy in the sky.
Well, that
Like
is,
I
it's a fine metaphor though, Hydra, for just like bad actors in politics, in the business of control, who
Yeah.
are who have ulterior motives. Any conspiracy theory kind of thing you want to launch at it's just sort of a sheen, a comic book organization is like, yeah, all the bad guys. Well, there is an actual bad guy organization. They are, yeah, yeah, the Cobra. It's all that, but in kind of a not real world exactly, but real world adjacent kind of way.
Right.
That comic book way, in a comic book way, and so that
so
works. It's really smart, actually. Yeah.
so are we not knocking at this retroactively for being like a QAnon movie?
Hmm.
A new world order.
There's senators involved in this, elaborate
And
conspiracy.
I mean,
and
if
what
it's
happens at the end of all that? They leak all the documents and nothing really happens.
well,
Yeah,
they started the Sokovia Accords, I guess. Is
I
the
guess
result of
I
it.
guess that's very
Yeah.
realistic. Nothing really
but that's
happens.
after Civil War, though, not after Winter Soldier.
Sokovia is right. So isn't
Yeah.
that it's the result
Age of
of
Ultron, and then it leads to Civil War.
son of a bitch.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
but it goes Avengers 1,
Hmm.
Winter Soldier, then Age of Ultron, then into Civil War. Um,
Well, it's a
one other
key.
thing I'll say about Civil War, it also benefits for me. It released the same year as Batman v Superman,
Oh yeah,
uh,
that's right.
That's right. Crazy.
and Batman v Superman was this so self consciously trying to orient itself as the mature alternative to the Marvel universe. Like this is the serious adult shit, not that baby food they're spooning you over there. And yet, I think it benefits from that comparison so much. Civil War does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean
definitely the
that
more
was
mature film. Yeah.
it's coming. Yeah, coming back to me. I think they were originally they're aiming for the same release date, and it was a game of,
That's
of
right.
who would be chicken.
Yeah.
And Batman, the Superman Batman Wonder Woman movie ended up flinching, which was kind of emblematic of just how well Marvel had done it.
What's striking me about that comparison, though, is that there is so many similarities there. You got the two biggest heroes in these respective universes that are fighting each other in these movies, and it's like the Ubermensch Boy Scout character against the like mortal
Billionaire.
but billionaire tech guy.
Self-made dude. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And
Wow.
in both cases, like the emotional climax hinges on the murder of the billionaire tech guy's mother.
Right.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And yet it's in the ultimate, super serious, grim and gritty version. Ultimately, that conflict between Batman and Superman is revealed to be it's just
It's little boys.
manipulation by
Yeah.
Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Or it's not even manipulation; it's outright extortion. Like he doesn't even have like a way to trick them. He's just like, no, look, I'm going to kill her if you don't go fight this guy. So they go fight each other, and like their conflict is ultimately very easy to resolve because it's it's built on completely false premises.
Yeah.
And then in Civil War, they like build up to the point where, okay, we've identified the main bad guy who was manipulating us, and everything, all the pieces are in place for them to team up to fight this, team of Winter Soldiers that Zemo had been secretly assembling. And then turns out it's not that at all, because Zemo really believes his shit when he says he hates superhumans. And then he reveals that no, it was Captain America's friend that killed Iron Man's mother. And so the finale there is them beating the shit out of each other because they really mean it and because they are like have a genuine conflict. And that's the cartoon kiddie version. But the adult version has this simplified bullshit.
Martha, right. There's no comparison, I guess, when you take how that fight patches up to the Superman Batman fight.
The other similarity is that both movies use it as a secret backdoor to introduce a new hero from a secret kingdom.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's true.
That's weird. These came out like within like 2 months of each other. That's so nuts.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And yet Civil War incorporates Black Panther into the actual conflict in a way where he has a genuine like third party interest in what's going on here. A real an actual emotional arc with the villain, whereas Wonder Woman literally airdrops into the big finale action scene.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I'll give Civil War lots of points for is the fact that because the centerpiece was the big battle royale in the middle, they specifically made the finale not a big airships in the sky kind of finale. They made it a very
intimate,
dark basement,
Yeah, and it's
bar fight. It's a bar fight,
and it's the resolution of the main themes of the film, which is one ideology versus the other. But there's messy personal stuff that kind of gets in the way of those ideologies because they're also ultimately, supposedly human characters like that have families and emotions, and that kind of overrides whatever the philosophical idea initially was. Yeah, it's written like you compare it to Batman and Superman, and it really is kind of a night and day written by adults kind of deal.
Really nice.
Despite all the aesthetics working in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Really nice twist with the other Winter Soldiers, where it kept building them up and then saying no, I killed them. I hate those guys.
Yeah, it's very surprising. I remember being like, wow, every turn this movie took when I saw it in theaters, I was like, wow, good job. I'm impressed every time. And I like how it ends too, which is just sort of a non-resolution in a way. It's just sort of like, we still hate each other. Well, it does have
don't make up
mediocre.
That's actually the part where that's the part where I kind of feel a little bit iffy about it because it puts Cap in such the good guy role. It's basically, I'm going to write you a nice letter.
Yeah, that's not great.
And then it's basically all on the ball is in your court. And it turns out it doesn't seem like that dire a split, honestly, by the end of it. It feels like, so when, Infinity War comes back up and it turns out he's had this phone the whole time and he's never called him out of, bitterness. For some reason, I completely forgot about it. I just kind of went, oh yeah, he still hasn't called.
I don't know. A murdered mother is kind of a big deal.
So and that was the other thing. And this isn't completely Civil War's fault, but when Stark asked Captain America, did you know, Rogers? Did you know?
Yeah,
I think that's a part of the drama that could have been a lot meatier because we didn't know he knew. There's a degree where Cap, because Winter Soldier actually has a little bit of in the computer exposition when he's going over all the stuff that the Hydra has been doing over the years, assassinations and everything. You do see image, like newspaper clippings of Stark's parents. But that's more for us. We don't really get a sense of like Captain America noticing that and taking it in. And
Yeah.
so in between movies, there is no sense that he knew that and he was holding it in, and it doesn't become relevant until it's asked, and it turns out he never really, like, because he didn't really want to know.
Mm.
He gives a kind of a non-committal response. I think that was one of the things that I also took issue with in the movie, where that could have been a lot richer.
I mean, I disagree. I think it's pretty clear that he did know.
Yeah.
And
He just
So-
didn't.
I didn't.
I think so. He does know, when it gets asked, but I feel like the drama of it would have been more compelling if that was something that we were, along with him on, like as opposed to it being a reveal. Because the fact that
I think overall there that it has to be a reveal that Winter Soldier did it right there for it. Maybe you could do it in a way where we knew all along and it's only a reveal to Iron Man in that moment, but I don't think that along with the other Winter Soldiers being dead, I think it has to be a kind of a surprise to us. And
I can't remember. Don't we see the murder earlier in the movie though?
Well, but we find out that there's all these other Winter Soldiers.
That's right.
So
that's right.
we kind
it's been
of
a while
think.
since I've seen it.
And actually, this is something I like about Civil War, especially, is that it's working. That our knowledge of the Disneyification of all this, and that it's all going to be PG and okay in the end, kind of it uses that against us there. So we think, okay, they've now laid the track for it to absolve Bucky of this killing, because it's not.
Mhm.
It's going to be one of the other guys. And if this were, let's say, 2021's Black Widow, it would absolutely do that and say, no, it wasn't him after all. And it turns out it was the other bad guy. We don't have to worry about that. But this sort of steers back into it and says, no, it actually was him. And Captain America knew. It allows for like maybe the one moment in the entire universe of Captain America being a little less than morally perfect.
Mhm.
And that, sort of like we were saying, that makes it more interesting when he can be not just physically vulnerable, but morally
evil. It's a nice scene when Zemo gets a good look at him. He's like, "Oh, I always thought like your eyes are different colors. I always thought you were perfect, but I guess you're not."
Yeah. So okay, we ended up talking about Civil War more than Winter Soldier in that in that segment, but they are kind of a piece. They're the Russo brothers, Captain America films. But we should move on to our number one consensus pick. Probably surprising no one is the original Avengers movie.
Yeah. Are we? I don't know. Was this anyone's absolute top? I had it.
It was for me for a long time.
Yeah.
For many years, and it's only recently that it dropped for me.
Is it my number two? I have no idea.
I mean,
it's 3 for you, for John,
Okay.
2 for June, and 6 for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, we all got it high. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a little weird to call it still the reigning champ. As they've kind of I guess normalized all the things it does really well. They've just turned it into formula, and they've been able to replicate it in ways, and certainly in other Avengers films. I guess Ultron is the example where they hadn't quite figured it out yet, how to replicate this exactly. But they've gotten there, I would say. And
I think
the right kind of...
Ultron follows like the Iron Man 2 mold, where they're just trying to do too much after the success of the first one. And things start slopping out of the pot a bit.
Yeah, maybe what's so good about this and so well considered about the original Avengers is that it doesn't try to do too much, that it knows what it needs to accomplish and kind of focuses on that. It needs a big scene at the end, but it doesn't need a massive plot.
It's the big Saturday morning cartoon, and I think it approaches it like that. I think it works very well as that.
I think it's what
Ultron failed by trying to be more, like too much more than that.
Yeah,
right. Ultron's trying to do a lot. Some of it succeeds with, others it does not at all. But Avengers, like you said, I think it's kind of like what I was talking about with Thor. I mean, there's just a childhood glee in this one, like it makes you a kid again watching Saturday morning cartoons, and works on that level very, very well.
It's one of the most purely entertaining adventure movies that's been released in the last several decades.
This is a high watermark for Joss Whedon, right? I mean, all his career,
I'd say so,
including his popular television shows. Like, this is the one that kind of everything hits in the right way. This is
but I mean, this is one of the biggest movies in the history of the world. Like, and
exactly, yeah.
It is also it was proof of concept for this whole thing that Marvel had been building for like 4 or 5 years at that point,
Right.
and that no one had ever really attempted. Like you can draw some parallels to like I don't know Hammer horror or something, but they didn't deliberately build up to something like this and like you know have all their chips on this. Like there was no like maybe if this fell on its face, they could have still done like backtracked and done Iron Man 3, but
Well, I mean, Iron Man
a
3
lot
was
of it.
like shot by the time this had came out. They were pot committed. But yes, like it wouldn't have had to be a cinematic universe. If this had fell apart, then they
Yeah.
could have just done, well, I don't know if we need to do another Captain America or Thor movie. We can just we can do some other stuff. And they wouldn't have had to look like what it looked like at all. But it did hit.
Yeah.
It hit big. It changed everything in a way. The size of this thing as a hit. I think it was the most popular movie ever came out. No, it never quite got to Avatar, but but yeah, I mean, like
But man,
consider like how much more entertaining is this than Avatar? For God's sakes,
oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
god,
yeah, like
immensely.
I mean, it's characters, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the secret ingredient on this. They actually made the characters work. They made you give a shit about them, and who knows how much of that is due to Whedon having a finger on the pulse of it all and threading it correctly, and how much of it is just that we've seen these guys in other movies that also worked in a way to some extent. All of them
It's
kind of
both.
worked
I
originally.
think it works. It has to have worked on its own to a large extent because aside from Iron Man, none of the other ones were quite as successful as this one became. And so I got to
Yeah.
assume that a lot of it was like people saying, "Let's see what the big deal is," and
Right.
it just functions. It works. A big part of the reason I put it at number two, just you know how I feel about lists, but I put it at number two because of what it managed to do. It proved everybody wrong. Like this wasn't going to work. This
Yeah.
and so this was the real first big putting the foot down, saying and it hitting that big. So you know. Whatever qualms I have with the movie, I think that can't be denied. So it became just kind of a number two for me.
Well, it's interesting if you want to like go on YouTube and look up movie Bob, like Bob Chipman's channel. He's got one of his series about the Avengers movie, and it's a really good video that makes the whole point that like the sort of genius at work here is that it makes the entire story like on a meta level about investing everybody in the idea of whether the Avengers can work, and within the story, that's everybody like Nick Fury trying to make this team work, and all the conflict is about whether they can come together and work. But as an audience member, you're in a position of you want the Avengers to work because you want the Marvel Cinematic Universe to come together, and be like, and you want to make sure that you didn't waste your time watching the Incredible Hulk in the first Avenger. And so you're in that corner on these sort of overlapping levels, and but the big slam bang finale is proof of concept both for Nick Fury's idea of this team and also Kevin Feige's vision of this universe, and it's paying off our investment of however many dollars we spent on those earlier movies and our time.
We were all Powers Booth going, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Would that make Nick Fury the Kevin Feige insert character?
I guess so.
I guess so, yeah.
Kinda. That's fun. Yeah.
And I think the other thing about this is it's much like some of the other starts about a great comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does its action a bit bigger than some of the other ones, and that overwhelms it a bit. But even in that big finale, there's a lot of solid comedy beats.
Many actually, yeah. That's one of the things that I get when you have Whedon like that. That's what you really want him to do is to have the characters be funny in character based ways, and yeah,
that's also what I love about the airport fight in Civil War is that the Russos or the Marcus and McFeely have a really good beat on how to make these characters funny in character while in action.
Not to be sniffed at. Not all these films can pull that off. I do think that they, really benefited from their strong casting choices leading up to this.
absolutely.
Like having Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Chris Evans,
Replacing
all these guys.
Ed Norton.
Getting rid of the bad one and finding a better person for the ensemble. I mean, if they've done one thing right, all across the boards, it's probably casting, right? Like, I mean, they generally hit that out of the park every time they try. I guess there's a few off notes,
I mean,
Bucky.
I wouldn't say these are bad casting. These are like huge casting coups at the time, actually, and they're not bad by any means. But in my present day, like spoiled hindsight way,
Yeah.
I've come to think that there was probably a better Hawkeye out there than Jeremy Renner. And not necessarily one they could have gotten. There probably was. And now, especially after being underwhelmed by the Black Widow movie, I'm kind of like, I kind of wish we could move to the alternate universe where Emily Blunt got the
Right.
Scarlet Widow role, or Scarlet Widow, the Black Widow role.
I don't know. I got an affinity for her too. I think she's good in these roles. I think.
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
think in this first one, I think she's great in this first one. Her
She might
scenes
be the
with,
standout in the
Ruffalo,
original. Yeah.
her scenes with Ruffalo and Hiddleston are just like some of the are like really nice, good scenes.
Yeah,
I might actually go that far.
her scene of sort of like stealth interrogating Loki, I think, is the best like Black Widow thing in the whole.
And ever
shebang.
so Joss Whedon-y.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, I think now that I'm actually reflecting on it, I believe that Black Widow might be my favorite character in the first Avengers. I think that is the best one, actually. I think, yeah.
I mean, I think they're all very close. Is the thing. I mean,
Right,
yeah,
it's a
outside of
strong
Hawkeye,
ensemble that
anyway,
really
but
works.
The top five.
Hawkeye is like not important enough that he's in mind control mode for most of the movie to keep him off the table for a bit.
You know who else is really good?
He's just too darn powerful. You have to
Mind
remove him.
control.
Like Professor
Mind
X.
control. It's always mind control. This stuff.
Yeah, a lot of mind control in the MCU for sure.
And one of the fun things about the first Avengers is how much I was, because of that skepticism. It's like, is this going to work? The first 15 minutes, the opening attack on Shield.
Yeah,
I was not into it. It kind of dug itself into a little bit. It was like, I'm not sure this is going to work. This isn't working very well. But then the Ruffalo scene, starts right after that. I was like, oh, okay.
But this is something that I think I was going to say. It probably colors my overall like feelings on this. They're remaining so warm after 10 years, because based on my original viewing, and this ties into I think the YouTube thing I was talking about a minute ago, that it does start kind of bad, and that ultimately works the movie's benefit. I think because it puts you in more a skeptical mindset of like, I'm not sure this is going to work, and then it happens that the first act is not great, but once the players start getting together, the more of them get together, the better it gets, and it keeps getting better and better as it goes on until that big finale is like just this ecstatic explosion of this is that opening scene was terrible, but now I'm totally on board with this. It's
and the
exactly
thing is,
what I hoped it would be.
None of the action, I wouldn't say any of the action throughout the movie is particularly impressive. Like there's no Winter Soldier-ish kind of stuff here. It's just that you're so in with the characters, you just go with it in that Saturday morning cartoon feeling all the way through to the end.
Yeah, and I mean the ending. I guess they knew they had to have the biggest action scene they'd had up until that point, and having those giant robot sharks flying out of the portals in the sky and attacking New York it's just sort of inherently cool, and it's big in a way they'd never been big to this point, where it's the sort of thing you just hadn't seen. I guess not really, right? How many alien invasions had we seen? Like it's
Independence Day is the big one with the sky lasers and everything coming out of the sky.
Yeah, but I mean it's still kind of rare at this point, 2012, right? To have.
But I'm not saying like as visual spectacle, I'm blown away by that the way I was even when I saw I don't know, like the Battle of Helm's Deep for the first time in the two towns.
Yeah, that's much better.
Sure, there was CGI at work there that looks better. There's prosthetics there that look better than any of the aliens in the Avengers. I'm not blown away visually, but like the Civil War airport fight, it's just that everybody is fighting with so much character. And there's interactions that are fun. You got
Stellan
Hulk
Skarsgård
sucker punching Thor is fantastic. There's just little tricks and people's powers are being put to use in these little fun, interesting ways. And it's just, and after the whole second act of them all fighting each other for so long, it's satisfying to see them come together. And even the other stuff, it's the second act stuff where they're fighting each other is not fantastic choreography. It's just cool and exciting to see these characters come together after you've done solo movies with them, and they're bouncing off each other in kind of interesting ways.
The other thing that I've always seen the movie dinged for, and I've been a part of this too, is that the movie kind of looks like a TV show. Like it's not a
Yeah.
particularly cinematic looking movie. Like from the aspect ratio to just the way it's lit, it feels like more like a. It kind
Yeah.
of feels like an Agents of Shield episode for a lot of it, because it's a
Yeah.
lot of it is set indoors in these big helicarrier sets. But I would almost argue, just like the kind of the rough opening, that look actually helps the movie overall. It's just a bright, colorful ish. Um, it's
Yeah.
poppy, I guess. It's not impressive, but it just puts focus instead of any focus on a particular beautiful shot or anything. It's all about the characters.
Yeah, and I would say the Battle of New York at the end there is in my books a superlative action sequence. It's one of the best examples you're going to see in action movies. It's not because the cinematography is great or even the choreography is that great, but
Mm-hmm.
it is written very well. It is a little 3-act movie unto itself, and you can follow it with very little dialogue, but
Right.
you see like how things are developing for each person on these sort of different levels of play. You get an all is lost moment 3/4 of the way through where
The
you
all
see
is last moment.
everybody getting like beat down.
That's the part that always makes me laugh. It's like all of a sudden everybody's doing really bad, and I don't know why.
Well, just because there's a ton of aliens. Like it's not rocket science.
One of them is Hawkeye
There.
swings through a window, and he's like, "Oh God, my back!" It's the darkest hour.
Yeah, it's great. But
It's just
little
like,
stuff we were complaining about this in Black Widow last week. Like just those little things go so far to selling. Like
they do, they really do.
Mhm.
you see Captain America when he like gets blown out of a window and falls, like caves in the hood of a taxi because he lands on his stomach,
Right.
and Chris Evans just raises his head and is like, "Oh
Ugh.
God, that one hurt," and like that makes a difference.
Even little stuff like Thor is supposed to be pretty invulnerable, but he because it's a personal moment, Loki stabs him in the side and is like, "Ugh," like, and it's like, would that hurt him? I have no idea, but you still see it happen, so he's just like,
Yeah.
"Ugh, this sucks."
Yeah, irritating at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's one. If you tune into it on TV, more than 10 minutes into it, it's going to be hard to turn away because
Yeah.
each scene is going to be a little better than the last one.
Yeah, that definitely helps it. It just keeps getting better. Is certainly useful, and it's hard to do that if you don't start at kind of a downbeat. Although even that scene, it's overwritten. It still has like a scene with like, oh, there's an Asgardian god escaping in the back of a jeep. Stuff like that is just funny. Like that. It heightens everything in a way that kind of lets you know, yeah, we're just having some Saturday morning cartoon fun here. The movie's full of stuff like that, like the old guy in Germany who's like, they're always men like you. Stuff like that is just silly fun on its face. It's
the Galaga thing.
Like,
that's a great joke. It's perfect for Downey Jr.
It's just very well calibrated. Yeah.
And if you want to give him total credit for it, it's also foreshadowing that Galaga is about rows of aliens falling out of the sky and you're defending them, and that's how the finale is going to play out. But okay,
that's the
Avengers.
best one.
People like the Avengers.
Yeah.
We know this.
Mhm.
Like,
I actually know some people who don't like that one because this is like, I don't agree with this, but it's because every character needs to be a heightened version of themselves. Like I have a good friend that he can't stand the way Whedon writes Captain America.
I could see being annoyed by the language stuff in Ultron, but I think he's perfect in Avengers.
I think it's the fact that, I don't know, he's written as too Boy Scouty, as opposed to like whereas Winter Soldier is
I see that actually. I think that it works in the
I think it works too.
Like
Yeah.
when he has to
exactly.
be the most Captain America he can be.
Yeah, and I think that's the nature of writing for like an ensemble like this. Like you do need to push it. It's like that group dynamic. You need to push them all, or otherwise it's going to be a big mush.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want a toned down version of Thor? Like, no, I don't.
Yeah. Right.
Actually, I would say like Thor is the one character that tended to lose out in the Avengers movies, like Ultron, and this one where there's that scene where he's having a conversation with Nick Fury about Loki. It's one of those movies like it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other for a bit. I think the movie has a hard time figuring out what to do with Thor for a while.
Yeah, I do
until
feel
the
like
action starts.
they especially in the first one, they have moments. They have moments for him, and they make him sing. Like there's that scene, the first scene Thor's in, I believe, between him and Loki, which you've been used to Whedon quips for a while, and then you get some like faux Shakespearean bromides coming out.
Yeah,
Like oh, leadership would suit you ill, brother. All that stuff. He's present. And you make room for other people when you're making a whole Avengers film. But I feel like they get enough of him that he's recognizably Thor, from the movie that came
yeah.
out a year ago. So, and having Hiddleston there certainly helps with that too. That relationship is intact.
That's the movie
Yeah.
where he became a star with that movie.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Hiddleston's real good in that movie too.
Mm-hmm. And in the fact that that's a character we've already seen coming back and heightened, that they've kind of upped his level, in between films, helps a lot. That they're also not trying to establish somebody on the level of Thanos. This is someone we're already familiar with, but he's leveled up. That helps.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, a really important bit of restraint on the part of Whedon or Feige, whoever was ultimately in charge of that. But you could definitely sense an urge to justify this big team up thing by going straight to a Thanos or something. The way that Justice League is kind of rushing towards Darkseid.
Yeah.
And I think they realized, or correctly, that really just getting all these people together and having them function in one movie was enough of a challenge. That the villain didn't need to be an overwhelming, physical powerhouse.
Just a guy who gives
the challenge was just
sneer.
getting the personalities to work together.
The villain was a troll that was trying to keep them apart. Like you just keep them arguing and never getting together.
That is like his whole goal.
Yeah, he's just a troll. Okay, so that's our top 5. The Avengers, then Winter Soldier, then Iron Man 3, then Ragnarok, then Infinity War. It's our consensus.
Is that a weird top 5? Is that or a pretty regular
I think it's surprising how high Iron Man 3 ranked.
Probably the biggest outlier, Iron Man 3. Yeah, but it's so good. Yeah.
I think it really benefited for me because I saw it in a hotel room last week and was like came in like 45 minutes into it, got all the Ben Kingsley stuff, and was really like, damn, this is funny and this is great.
Hi, this is John, popping back in from a room full of reverb to kind of outro this episode, let you know what happened. We talked a lot longer than we expected to. So you got, your top 5 MCU films listed right there. We kept going after this. We talked about personal favorites, stuff that didn't quite make the top 5 cumulative, but might be important to us individually, or if not important, just fun in some respects. So I cut this into 2 episodes, and there'll be a second one next week, and that one's going to cover stuff like Black Panther and Doctor Strange and Guardians of the Galaxy. Other things like that, that might not have made the top, but are still worth a conversation. So look forward to that next week. Okay. Talk to you then.